2025 is here, but we're still recovering from 2024. So we're rounding up some of the biggest and or well-received games from throughout 2024. We already did a list for PS5 games. Now we're doing it for games available on PC. Let's get started off with number 50. Gray Zone Warfare is an open world extraction shooter. It emphasizes realism, some decent visuals, and if extraction is your thing, if realism, if tactics is your thing, Gray Zone Warfare might do it for you. It launched a little bit rough, but more recently it's been getting better reviews, so yeah. Next over at number 49, Enshrouded. Enshrouded is a really ambitious project, still technically in early access, but it's a big old adventure RPG, giving you tons of freedom, but the world has some unique spins on it. Like I said, they're still working on this one, but it is already really promising, and you can jump in now. Next, over at number 48, we have Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. The JRPG series is here on PC with this newest title with some incredible characters in a 4-party action combat experience. You can also play this both solo or cooperatively. Next over at number 47 is Hades 2. Yes, the original Hades really perfected this whole style of gameplay and flow, but somehow Hades 2 has managed to perfect it even more. And it's another one still only in early access, but out of a lot of the games on this list, this is probably one of the more complete early access experiences. Hades 2 is just like the original. It's totally awesome. If you played Hades and you were like, I need more of this, here you go. Next over at number 46, we have Farming Simulator 25. They are back at it. It is bigger than ever with tons more detail, gorgeous graphics, ground deformation, atmospheric changes. There is a lot to Farming Simulator. And if you think this is just a joke, no, the people behind these games take them really seriously, and the fan base really loves them. So far, it seems like people are really loving Farming Simulator 25. It's setting it very positive on Steam. So if this is your cup of tea, or maybe you're just looking for the experience of working on a farm, Farming Sim 25 might be for you. Next, down at number 45, we have Once Human. This is a free-to-play, third-person, open-world survival game, kind of like a combination between an Ark or a Rust and a Division. At launch, I wasn't really the biggest fan of this, but it's got some cool ideas, and it has been expanding quite a bit because it was well-received generally. You got big old monsters, you got factions, you got cool weapons, a lot of customization, and some weird sci-fi fantasy stuff going on. Next, down at number 44, we have Content Warning, a really fun multiplayer game where you and your friends jump in, and the objective is for you to run around in spooky places and film spooky stuff. It's kind of like a horror game, but it can be a little bit more goofy. But the idea is to capture these things the best you can to create content. You're essentially playing a game where you're like horror YouTubers, and then you go back to your base and you watch what you found. It's really cool, really creative, and the people who have jumped in have really, really loved this one. Next over at number 43, we have Sins of a Solar Empire 2. Despite the very over-serious sounding title, this is just a really, really fun real-time 4X strategy game. It is absolutely massive, and not only just in terms of like the scale of battles and stuff, but also the freedom of how to do things. All-out warfare, diplomacy, political stuff, economic stuff. It seems like the publisher Stardock really nailed it with this one. I know some games of this genre have fallen short in recent years, but Sins of a Solar Empire 2 is righting those wrongs. Next over at number 42, we have Chained Together. If you're looking for a strange, kind of fun, viral multiplayer experience, check this out. Essentially, you're going through insane, weird obstacle courses in hell with other people, but you're chained together, so you have to deal with everything that entails. This game has really, really inventive and creative level design that just leads to absolutely chaotic moments. You and up to 4 people chained together, flinging around. It's a really, really clever idea, and they've nailed the execution. Next at number 41, we have Final Fantasy XVI. This released last year on PlayStation, but this year it has come to PC, so you get to experience the over-the-top action-adventure Final Fantasy game. This is like a combat action RPG. No turn-based battles here, just lots of cool hacking and slashing. Really cool characters, incredibly cinematic boss battles, and a world you want to spend time in and learn more about with a cool story. Final Fantasy XVI may not be like everybody's favorite Final Fantasy game, but it is damn good and has absolutely earned its place in the ranks. Now, over at number 40, Frostpunk 2. This is a little bit different than the original game, where in the original you were in a frozen wasteland trying to build out a city and survive and keep everybody warm. Here, in this one, it's still about survival, but it's also about expanding your empire. You're building multiple cities, you're sending out scouts, you're managing resource and trade routes, but thankfully all the tough decision making and people management that comes with a Frostpunk game. It's definitely different than the first game, but they tried something different here. They didn't just fart out a sequel that's the same thing again. They tried to rewrite the wheel, or what's the word? Rewrite the story, reinvent the wheel. I don't know, I'm falling apart here. Let's move on. Now over at number 39, Gundam Breaker 4. You can build up your own Gundam and kick some ass. That's really the gist of it if you've never experienced these games. Yes, it's based around Gundam, but specifically around Gunpla, the actual building, the fun hands-on making of these things. And then you can create your ultimate machine and take it out into the battlefield and engage in some over-the-top action hack and slash battling. If you like mech stuff, but especially if you like building mech models at home, consider this. Next, over at number 38, we have Body Cam. This is the fun first-person multiplayer competitive shooter that released in early access. It definitely needs a lot more to it, but it's really that visual style. It's all based around realism and essentially looking like body cam footage. It is incredibly wild to see in motion, but thankfully, it's also fun to play. Next, over at number 37, we have No Rest for the Wicked. This is a really cool top-down action RPG. It's kind of like a Diablo, but what if it was more bespoke? Really, really compelling, well-written individual missions, a really well-designed world to explore, and an incredible visual style and a real solid emphasis on storytelling. This is still in early access, and when I did the before you buy, I definitely had some issues with it, but it is still a great idea for a game, and we're excited to see what else comes from it. Next, over at number 36, we have The First Descendant. This is a free-to-play hero thing. It's a live service game. It's an incredibly live service game. That's probably one of the craziest things I could say about it. But you jump into missions, you play by yourself or co-op with other players, tackling all kinds of enemies, but most specifically these big hulking enemies. And you're doing it with a variety of different characters and play styles. There's a lot of depth to this one, and it seems like people have been really digging it. Next, over at number 35, we have Pacific Drive. This is essentially a survival game, but on wheels. You hop into a car, you drive your car through what is essentially kind of like a stalker zone. You know, there's like scientific anomalies and radiation and poison, and you need to progress and upgrade your vehicle and essentially make it more capable to get further in the game. What starts out as you and your piece of crap jalopy car that always breaks down it ends up being your ultimate source of protection, a science machine that can capture things, drive off-road, store extra fuel, you name it. This is probably one of the more unique games available from 2024, and Pacific Drive is awesome. Now, next over at number 34, we have Delta Force. If you're looking for something to scratch that Battlefield itch, it seems like Delta Force has been doing a good job. You know, it's still the early days. There's only so much available to it in terms of modes and stuff, but it seems like they're really cooking. It's been a while since we've had a Delta Force game, and it's nice to see it back in full steam. Next, over at number 33, we have the Outlast Trials. Now, to be fair, this one started in early access in 2023, but it got its full final release in 2024, and it's awesome. It's different than the previous Outlast games, I will say that, but especially if you're liking playing with friends and playing co-op stuff, and you like horror, you know, we gotta recommend this one. It's a no-brainer. Now, next at number 32, we have Homeworld 3. Homeworld 3 is, of course, the return of the massive sci-fi ship battle RTS, and yes, it is not really the best received. I think fans had big expectations for this one, and it seems like maybe they didn't quite meet it, but it's still available for you to check out for yourself. They also have like a collection of the original games if you want to try those, but Homeworld 3 did release this year. It is quite a big game, and if you like having massive ship battles, you know, managing shields, setting phasers to stun, all that tactical sci-fi stuff, Homeworld 3 is for you. Now down at number 31, we have Last Epic. Essentially, if you're looking for an alternative to Diablo, maybe you saw Diablo 4 and it wasn't quite your vibe, this is probably your next best bet. You got 15 different classes to mess around with, either solo or with other people, and you're essentially hacking and slashing and looting and building up your character in typical RPG fashion. Some of the stuff you can get, some of the abilities you can equip are really, really cool. There's a ton of depth because, like I said, there's 15 classes, there's a shit ton of skill trees. This is a surprisingly awesome game. And next at number 30, we have Path of Exile 2. Another game releasing in early access. I think that's kind of like a trend here, but it's a PC games list. Okay, so whatever. But Path of Exile 2 is an early access game that has started off really, really strong. This is an action RPG, a Diablo-style game with a ton of depth to it, and you can play with up to 6 players. The strength of the combat, the enemy design, and the character builds is really what carries a lot of this. It's 12 classes, and essentially they really took everything from the original Path of Exile and really built on top of that in terms of classes, content availability, everything. Path of Exile 2 is already kick-ass. Next, over at number 29, we have Helldivers 2, the third-person multiplayer co-op shooter that has been sweeping the democratic nations, is absolutely awesome. We've recommended it so much up to this point. You know, the whole PSN account thing was kind of annoying, but otherwise, this is a really, really good throwback style game. It feels like a classic, simple third-person action shooter, but also a great love letter to the incredible Starship Troopers. Helldivers 2 is just a really good time, man. Now, next over at number 28, we have Pal World. Yes, the Pokemon with Guns game turned out to be so much more. It's more of a survival game. There's so much to this in terms of the depth of crafting, building, progressing through technology trees and stuff like that. All that, and then also, yes, you can capture Pokemon and you can be their friends or use them in battle or use them in production. It really is a great mashup of genres. Next, over at number 27, we have Black Myth Wukong. This awesome action combat game is just a ton of fun. It's really unique because, you know, it's based around Chinese mythology, but also it's just a damn good time. It starts off pretty linear and simple and really opens up to be a massive game filled with incredible boss battles. I'm talking like boss battles by the minute, and they're all really well constructed and a ton of fun to blast through. Black Myth Wukong has been an internet sensation for good reason. It's just a damn good time. Next, over at number 26, we have Horizon Forbidden West. The former PS5 exclusive has made its way to PC, and thank goodness, because you can crank the graphics up even more. Horizon Forbidden West is a pretty chunky video game. There's a lot to this one. A big world, tons of quests, tons of robotic monsters to slay. So if you saw it release on PS5 and you were waiting to play it on your PC, now is the time. And speaking of that, at number 25, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut released on PC this year, and man, this is an awesome game to have running on a PC, on ultra-wide, with the settings cranked up. It's beautiful. But thankfully, it's also a damn good game to boot. Probably one of the best open world, you know, Japanese samurai action games ever. I know that's like a very small list of games to choose from, but still, really, Ghost of Tsushima set the bar in so many ways, and now we're glad it's on PC. And sticking with that trend at number 24, God of War Ragnarok. Released last year on PS5, now available on PC, so PC players have been able to see where Kratos' adventure goes next. This is a bigger game than God of War 2018, you know, a lot more to keep busy with, a lot of variety, more enemy variety, just tons to do, but thankfully it still sticks to the storytelling and the kind of Metroidvania roots. Next, out at number 23, we have Balatro, another game that has taken the world by storm. This is an addictive game. This is just a deck builder game. It is very simple, very straightforward, but the roguelike elements to it have really gotten people hooked. It's gotten Game of the Year nominations and awards for good reason. Sometimes a video game doesn't need to be a massive AAA ray-traced open world bullshit thing. It can just be a well-constructed, simple game with compelling rules and gameplay, and that's it. And Balatro is the perfect example of that. Next, down at number 22, we have Animal Well, One of the indie darlings of the year, this is an awesome game. It's not filled with violence or crazy combat, it's more about exploration and vibes. But thankfully, it doesn't just coast on those vibes. It's a well-constructed 2D game with incredible exploration and great puzzles that have really taken the community hostage. This game had so many mysteries to solve and it was fun to see unravel in real time. Animal Well is definitely one of the more unique games on this list for sure. Now down at number 21, we have Marvel Rivals. This free-to-play Overwatch with Marvel superheroes is actually pretty awesome. It has the free-to-play live service trappings, yes, but that aside, what you get here is a very simple but fun character action game. It's packed with different characters that all have their own unique abilities and play styles, and it's so fun to just chip through them. They're also adding characters all the time. We just got some of the Fantastic Four in here. People have been loving this one on console, but it seems like especially they're loving it on PC. Number 20. Slitterhead. This one is kind of becoming like the underrated weird game of 2024, and if this is your type of thing, you shouldn't miss it. Essentially, it's a weird sci-fi action-adventure body snatcher style game from one of the original people behind Silent Hill. It's creative, it's different, it's flawed, yes, significantly, but it shoots for the moon with its weird ideas. If that's something that strikes your fancy, definitely consider it. Now, next over at number 19, we have the awesome Sonic and Shadow Generations. Sonic Generations was already an incredible game. So for them to port it, kind of upscale it, put it on a modern platform here, already a really great idea. It's a solid Sonic adventure, but adding in the new Shadow the Hedgehog content just makes it that much better. There's a significant amount of content here where you get to play as Shadow, and it's just really fun. It's just straight up good old-fashioned fun, and we can't say anything better. Next over at number 18, we have Empire of the Ants. This is a pretty unique multi-platform game because it's the ant video game. It's a game where you get to live out your ant fantasies. They've been working on this for a long time. It's a smaller project, but it's incredibly ambitious because not only are you doing ant stuff, a little bit of strategy, some platforming, some exploration, but also the game just looks really good. The sense of scale makes the whole ant thing really, really convincing. This is a weird, unique game, and you should check it out. Next over at number 17, we have Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. This is another unique one because it's a really interesting action-adventure game with a unique hook. You are a Banisher. You're essentially going around this 1600s New World America, engaging in combat, fighting otherworldly forces, but also solving ghost mysteries, and then deciding whether or not you banish that ghost to the afterlife. It's flawed, sure, but the writing and the RPG dialogue decision-making systems are really, really good. Next over at number 16, we have Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This Xbox PC exclusive is the follow-up to Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. And while personally I don't know if it tops the heights of the original game, this is still a very gorgeous, very well-built adventure to play through. It looks and sounds incredible. The performances are really interesting. It's just a very simple game. Either way, it does do some cool stuff, and this is the second game, and if you haven't played the original, you should definitely at least start with that. Next over at number 15, we have Manor Lords. This released earlier in the year for PC on early access, and it is absolutely awesome. A great combination of things that you probably like to play on PC. Medieval strategy, some life sim, city building, tactical battles, economic stuff. Really, Manor Lords has everything. It is an indie project, yes. It's made by a smaller group of developers, but you don't really feel that. This game is absolutely quality already. Even being in early access, when it released in April, it just had such a good showing, and we're excited to see where it goes next. But either way, it's good to play right now, and we recommend it. Next over at number 14, we have Tekken 8. This is probably the fighting game of the year. It released very early in 2024, but it's had some legs. It's stuck around for a reason because of, number one, some great support, but also just the fact that as a fighting game, it is damn solid. Tekken 8 has ruled since the beginning, and it's nice to see that reign continue here. Next over number 13, we have Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. The team behind these games at this point know what they're doing, but they still managed to keep it fresh and push things ahead with this newest one. The turn-based action combat is here. Ichi is still an incredible main character, but now the new setting and so many more activities to keep you busy just make this a really fun time. I've spoken to a lot of people where this is like in their top 3 game of the year. If you like Yakuza games or like a Dragon games, whatever you want to call them, this one is definitely different than the old days of the original games, but it is absolutely a really fun time. Next, over at number 12, we have Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. From Software did it again, this time with an expansion that is really big. I know sometimes people don't like expansions to count, but this was a big one. A lot of new things to do, incredible bosses, more challenge, and a really beautiful new world to explore. Erdtree really just gives you everything you want from a From Software expansion, so that's it, no notes. Next, over at number 11, we have Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Man, this is just a regular old-fashioned good video game. It's the full package. You got a full single-player campaign with chunky third-person shooting action. Then you also have some multiplayer modes to keep you busy. Specifically, some really kick-ass co-op where you and a friend can customize your own Space Marine and do all these different classes and jump in and shoot hordes and hordes of enemies. It's just a really good time and has served as kind of a gateway drug for people to get into the world of Warhammer 40k. Next, over at number 10, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. It's been a long time since we've gotten one of these games, and now, finally, the fans got what they want. A big old brawler with destruction and every Dragon Ball character under the sun. With that, all the usual flaws and character balancing stuff, it's just a good time. Is it the most complete offering ever? I don't know for sure, but if you've just been itching to jump into one of these and punch with your friends, play as Cell and throw Krillin through a wall or something, I don't know, that's where this game really succeeds. Next, over at number 9, we have Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Yes, I know every year we get a Call of Duty game, and people have grown pretty cynical to that, but it seems like this time they just did a really good job. A great single-player campaign that is creative and actually compelling and feels like they gave a damn. To multiplayer, which has gotten people really hooked. The new movement systems, the maps, got people really sweaty and got some people going back to Call of Duty after many years away. And then, of course, some zombies. Black Ops 6 really has everything, and this time around, most importantly, it doesn't feel half-assed. Now, next over at number 8, we have Dragon Age The Veilguard. Look, I'll be honest, this is a pretty divisive one to include on the list. I personally wasn't the biggest fan of the game. I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world, but some Dragon Age fans out there have had a good time with this one. Either way, if you're just looking for like a big new RPG with some action, spectacle, create your own new character, and jump in, this game is available for you. I don't know if it reaches the heights of the old BioWare games, but it certainly isn't a disaster like Anthem. Next, over at number 7, we have Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess. Capcom went a little different with this one. While on the surface, when we all first saw it, we thought it was just kind of like an action hack and slash adventure. What this actually is a really creative, really fun and engaging kind of tower defense game based around Japanese mythology. The music, the visuals, it's all pretty out of this world, but the game is simple but really fun to play. Capcom lately has been very much sticking with their sequels and stuff, their Monster Hunters, their Resident Evils, but Kunitsugami is something completely new and fresh. Next, over at number 6, we have Dragon's Dogma 2. Capcom finally did it. They brought back Dragon's Dogma. And, you know, kind of with the approach of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is essentially more Dragon's Dogma in a bigger world, more engaging bosses, more loot, more stuff to do. This is a massive RPG, and one absolutely worth sinking your teeth into if you like these types of games. Even if you didn't play the original one, just jump into Dragon's Dogma 2. Trust us. Now, next at number 5, we have Persona 3 Reload. This is a great way to experience the now beloved classic Persona 3. One of the best JRPGs ever made by many people. The Atlas Classic is now available in this honestly really solid package, good representation of the original game. Next, over number 4, sticking with that theme, we have Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Another fantastic JRPG from Atlas and Sega. Shin Megami Tensei 5 really delivers. It's got great gameplay with some compelling combat and really awesome character and creature designs and a tense and very dramatic over-the-top story. Next, over number 3, since we're sticking with this theme, we also have Metaphor Refantasio. This game, made by some of the people behind Persona, like Persona 5, is a completely new thing. A new universe, a new story. Instead of set in a school with drama and monsters, now it's the realm of fantasy and fiction. And while also being a really compelling and fun character-based, turn-based JRPG with a lot of creative spins here and there, it's really the story and the themes, the topics this game tries to tackle. They just do a really good job. You've probably seen Metaphor on some Game of the Year lists at this point for 2024, and for good reason. It is a hell of a game. Now down at number 2, we have Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. They nailed it. A first-person Indiana Jones game had us skeptical, but it turns out it is a ton of fun, and it feels like a real genuine return of not only just a good Indiana Jones thing, but also a good Indiana Jones video game. It's been years since we had one, and now this gives you tons of cool environments to explore that are actually interesting, some simple but really fun combat and stealth, with a lot of good old-fashioned Indiana Jones punching and whipping. Troy Baker does a surprisingly great job as Harrison Ford Indiana Jones. It's just a solid, straightforward, old-fashioned video game adventure. But like I said though before, the worlds are really, really well built and interesting. So they're not padded out, they're not fluffed out to extend the runtime. They're just big enough, filled with a lot of interesting stuff to encourage you to explore just a little bit more. And it's a cliche at this point, but like this game does really make you feel like Indiana Jones. Don't make fun of us for saying that. But Machine Games, you know, the developers behind Wolfenstein before this, they really, really nailed the Indiana Jones adventure feeling. And now, down at number 1, we have Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. Stalker is back in full form, but thankfully it doesn't forget where it came from. While this is, you know, a big new Stalker game on PC and on Xbox consoles, it still feels like a distinctly old school PC game. It launched with a lot of bugs, a lot of issues with the AI and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it was pretty rough, but the developers have stuck with it and updated it and cleaned it up. And bugs and messy AI or not, like at its root, this is a great game. It is definitely for the hardcore style player, but journeying through the zone, looting and scrounging and surviving and fending off against other stalkers, raiders, and horrific creatures is just really, really satisfying. This is a really good game world to get lost in if you like looting and shooting and survival horror and some post-apocalyptic radiation stuff for good measure.